Welcome, everybody. Welcome. You are tuned to Shank Club NFL Saturday, just after 2:30. I do apologise for the late start. I was having some technical difficulties with my headphones and microphone and all that jazz. Another apology. Pete can't be with us, unfortunately, today. Something's come up, but he said he might hop on later. Got a great show lined up, some great guests. So let's get into it. This is Shank Club NFL. We are live. Hit it, Carl. Welcome. We are the Shank Club NFL. There you go. There's the intro like that, Pete. Well done. That's probably the best thing you've ever done for this channel, but that's another story. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Cork, Win with Niners. Got some good guests coming up. Got some great topics to talk about. Got very limited time with two guys, so I'm going to bring them up straight away. Returning to the show, the man, the myth, the mystery, the legend, Jeff Reinbold. Jeff, how are you?
I'm great, Nick. How you doing, man? It's great to be back with you guys.
Yeah, we're good. Pete obviously sends his apologies, but even the lure of speaking to you again, I couldn't drag him away from the kitchen sink. It's terrible, really, isn't it?
I haven't seen. There's not been a Pete sighting since Pittsburgh went out of the playoffs.
He was actually on last week when you couldn't make it, and
okay.
If you just watch the first 10 minutes back on YouTube, you'll see that he got very well appreciated by all of the people that joined. So that was quite funny. But yeah, he was on last week, bless him. So that's good. Right, got another returning guest. Sam, father to one of the surprises possibly of last season at Pittsburgh. How are you, sir?
I'm well this morning. It's not really early, but it's early for me. I'm one of these that likes to sleep in, but I'm good. Actually, the family's down, and we're gonna do a little shopping this morning. My daughter got engaged a few weeks ago, and
congratulations!
She wants to thank you. She wants to do a little early wedding gown shopping. So,
oh baby,
do a little bit of that.
Oh, you better get that pocket ready, brother.
Joys of being a father.
Yes, I told her I'll be 60 in November. I was like, please wait till after that so I can get some of my money out without having to get any penalties from my accounts.
Yeah, definitely. So, how is Alex doing? Obviously, the last game we saw him in, he was balling out, and then he got an ankle injury, I think?
Yes, it was an ankle. Luckily, it was only a grade 1 sprain. He was in a walking boot for like a day and a half, and he was telling us if they would have won, he could have played on Saturday. So he's doing pretty well. He actually is traveling around. He's been in North Carolina now about not quite 2 weeks, but getting us soon, and he's doing good. He's still doing a little bit of therapy, but not. I mean, like I said, there's no limp or anything, so I think he's fine. I see a full recovery. No structural damage.
That's good news. Because I know he certainly looked in a lot of pain when he was taken off the field. Must have been a bit of a heart-stopping moment for you and your wife because you were in attendance, I believe.
Yeah, we were, and it was tough because obviously everyone knows how bad the score was, and to look out there and see him limp off, I'm like, great. And he goes back out like maybe 2 plays later. He's back off. I was like, that's not good. So we knew it was. I won't say bad. We knew it wasn't good. So luckily after the game, we saw him, and coming out in the walking boot was kind of I don't know, fearful, but we were good. The MRI was fine, so everything's good. You know, he was blessed to really only have had that through a whole season. Granted, he didn't get as many snaps until the last 5 or 6 games, but still, he did well to stay injury free.
Yeah, I'm guessing it. I mean, I wouldn't know, but I know Jeff will know that it must take if you do play a full 16-game season, the toll on the body by the end must be, especially if you're, a starter all year. The toll on the body must be really quite bad by the end of it, I would think.
Yeah, and it's good for him because he's had an opportunity to understand what it's like to be a special teams player and a kind of a role player, and then also what it's like to start and to be a guy that your team depends on for you to make plays. So he's been through some real hurdles as a rookie. He'll come back so much better, Sam, so much, more ready as he comes into, and not so much physically ready probably, but just the mental ready, the emotional ready that it takes. He knows now what it takes to play at the highest level. And I think, please pass on from me that I thought he had a great rookie year. And, it was fun to watch him grow every time he went out there to play. And, nothing but big things ahead of that kid.
Thank you. We feel very fortunate of the opportunity, and we also saw that growth. So I'm really looking forward to next year, regardless, whatever happens, obviously with Bud. But it's a business. It's a lot of people they have to find. So somebody's not going to come back, and it's just a matter of numbers. And either way, we'll be. If the team's better, we'll be happy. If he gets to start, right? He has to keep subbing. That means that we have the 2 best edge defender, I feel, core in a tandem rather in the league. But it's all good. He's got a good attitude about it. He knows that his goal is to get better, get stronger, get faster, put on a little weight. He really doesn't want to gain a lot of weight. He wants to keep that speed and just get stronger.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is obviously that he made it to the NFL because, as you know, the numbers of people that try to get in the league and can't, it's amazing, really. I mean, a friend of ours, mine and Pete's, Cale Garrett, who was a star linebacker for Missouri, got injured in his last season, and he was I think he had 2 pick sixes, 3 interceptions, and he on course for a really good time, got injured, made it to the combine, and then he floated around a few teams, but he's actually signed a futures contract now with the Giants. So he's out in New Jersey, which is good news. And, you see a lot of these people that don't make it. So for Alex to actually make it on a team and then actually play and then start, it must have been amazing for you to see.
Yeah. And we never took for granted how fortunate he was and how limited these opportunities are. And he knows how he has to keep working. But if you read anything about him, just trying to be that person who's early in the mornings and staying late, and he continued to do that. And he would tell me, ironically, I was asking him about Mr. Rooney because I've heard some of the press conferences lately, and I would ask him, "Hey, have you spoken to him?" So I talk to him every day. He's always around. He would always speak, and I always made a point of speaking to him. I was there after practice, so. But yeah, that's a good thing. He knows that part of the business. That's something we try to instill in our kids. He definitely took that.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It obviously you and your wife brought all your children up well, and it shows because of obviously like the attitude and everything like that. I mean, I'm sure all of your children are a credit to you, but obviously Alex in the spotlight of the NFL, I can only judge by that, and he seems a really nice stand-up guy. So yeah, it's good. I'm quite interested. Were you at the game, Sam?
Yeah, I was at the game.
And obviously the scoreline wasn't what you wanted, but were you surprised just how out of hand it got?
Totally. I mean, I literally had looked down either at my phone or something in the bag in front of me, and I heard, a few hundred I don't see it ever even being 1,000 people there. There weren't many people. And I heard this kind of noise, and I look up and I see them near the end zone. I said, asked my wife what happened. I said, no way, no way. And I looked, I said, oh, great start. And then after that, all the fall guys remember interception after interception and this and that. And before you know it, I said, it felt like a bad movie. And right before halftime, him getting hurt, I remember going, if my son wasn't out there, I probably want to just like go home because I'm out here freezing at night and having to sit here with this. It was tough. They made a little run second half, so I had this feeling like, oh yeah, they're gonna come back. No, they aren't. I don't know.
Just being a fan, you expect if the ground had had people in it, I think a lot of people would have just thought, let's go home. What is the point being here? It was a bit. I was actually really shocked just how bad that first quarter, first half was. I think that things that were going on the scoreline did flatter Cleveland to an extent, but I think on the day they were just a better team, and you got to take it with good grace. And unfortunately, these things happen. What did you think, Jeff, of that start of that game that was a bit crazy?
Well, usually when you're playing a 16-week schedule, and you're going to have one of those, right? You're going to have one of those games where it just is, either things that no way would Pouncey snap the ball over the quarterback's head the first play. I mean, that's like a never happens deal, right? But it happened. And, the sad part is it happened to the Steelers at a time when, they're in the playoffs and they're against the good Browns team that all of a sudden captures momentum, and they start to believe that they're going to win the football game. And I give the Steelers credit for, like Sam said, making that run in the second half and really closing it up and making it tougher. To come back from that kind of deficit in the National Football League is extremely difficult, and it's kind of for as good as the first 11 games were for Pittsburgh, the last, the tail end of the season was just a tough road for them. Injuries that eventually mounted up, and, problems with, can't establish a running game. So they're really one dimensional on offense, which puts so much pressure on the defensive guys. And, eventually, it's going to come back and haunt you, and it did at the worst time for the Steelers. Obviously,
it did.
But then there's always next year. I've seen that Big Ben has said he's coming back next year. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what your viewpoint is, obviously. And apparently he's going to restructure his contract, and whether he does or not. You don't know. A lot of sound bites have come out in the last couple of days that I've seen, and I don't know with the retirement of Philip Rivers and things like that. The older quarterbacks now are becoming, less and less now. So, do you think there's going to be a change, Jeff, in Pittsburgh, or do you think Ben's coming back and he's going to try and win one last one before he does hang it up?
Well, there's really two things you can count on in pro football, Nick. Number one is that you're going to have you're going to go through tough times, right? You're going to have adversity, and that's the one thing you can guarantee to a player. And then the other thing you can guarantee to a player is there's going to be change every year, because you look at the Chiefs, for example. There are 20 guys that won that World Championship with the Chiefs last year that are not in Kansas City right now, 20 of them. And so every team goes through this process. You look at a young guy like Highsmith, and, Sam's right. He's 100% correct. He's done what he can do. He's a valuable commodity to them now, because he's proven that he can play. He's proven that he can start, and he's on his rookie contract. Because when you have big contract guys, and this is just the business of the business, when you have big contract guys, and they've got a bunch of them at Pittsburgh, and they've got a bunch of free agents, for every big contract guy you got to backfill it with rookie contracts. And, having juggling act to do, which is what they're going to have to do in Pittsburgh. They're going to have to make some real hard decisions. I thought their decision to bring in Haskins was really smart, because here's a guy that, I don't care who you talk to, they all say the same thing. Has plenty of arm talent, good enough athlete, didn't play a lot of college football at Ohio State, really only started 1 year, but has the physical abilities to be, a quarterback in the National Football League. So you're going to get him for $1 million a year. It's basically a low risk, potential high reward contract. And that can, that does a lot to help them sign some of these other guys that they're going to have to sign. So, Mr. Rooney and Mike Tomlin and the whole Pittsburgh organization have a lot of work to do this offseason. But there will be change. How much of it, I think, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I knew Haskins was going to get a job somewhere, but I didn't know, obviously, where he was going to land. And that automatically signing that then makes you wonder, well, is it going to be Big Ben's last season? Is it going to be a QB controversy? Is there going to be a competition, et cetera, et cetera? And you'd have to say, based off of a lot of last season's play, if Haskins goes in there and does really, really well in training camp, please God, let there be a preseason, because as much as I hate preseason games, I think this year showed injuries and preparations and everything that even if you only have one preseason game or maybe two, they are needed, because, in the first few weeks, a lot of players went down. In my time, the Niners, we lost Nick Bosa. We lost quite a few players early on, and as much as I hate the preseason games, because it is all window dressing and smoke and mirrors, I think they're definitely this year proved that somehow, some way, there's got to be preseason games, and Haskins could light it up in preseason. Who knows? It's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, does Ben start, and then if after 2 or 3 games he's not doing so well, he gets pulled? It's one of them. It's one of those strange things this year.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting, Nick, you talk about it, and this is a business, right? And I think when you're a player, sometimes you come into the league and you don't look at it that way, and then all of a sudden you start to see guys leave the building around you, and you recognize, oh my God, this is really, this is my job now. This is serious, right? And we have to understand that the role and responsibility of management and ownership is to put the best football team on the field that they can. And there's a loyalty factor, yes, but there comes a point where if you can't help us win, which is the name of the game, it's the bottom line in the business world, right? And it's the same as in any business, then we've got to find somebody who can help us win. And those are the decisions that they're going to have to make in every one of the 32 clubs. And, obviously there was a comment made about Ben's contract being so big, and he came back and said, well, it's not to me about the money. It's about one more year. They'll work through that. And at some point they're going to have to make that call. Where are we best? What's the best thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers? What's the best thing for the, San Francisco 49ers and all 32 other teams? We see it right now. You look at Phillip Rivers retires. Okay, Indianapolis, what's the best thing for you? Is it to go try and mortgage to get Deshaun Watson? Is it to trade for Matthew Stafford? Is it to draft a guy? That's all the stuff that goes on in the offseason that players really, they can't control all that noise. They can't control all those things. Like Alex, he's just got to heal. He's got to get better in the offseason, got to get stronger and get himself ready mentally. It's amazing what he did really with no preseason games. Here comes a kid. Usually he would have been a guy that would have played in all 4 of those preseason games, right? To get time, to learn the pro game, to get up with the speed of the pro game. And all of a sudden Bud goes down and he jumps in and he does a great job. So that's why I say, if I'm the Steelers, I'm sitting there saying, we got a guy right now we know can play, right? And now what's the best combination of people to give the Pittsburgh Steelers the best chance to go to the Super Bowl, whether that's, Bud Dupree or, Ben Roethlisberger or whoever. They're going to make those decisions.
Definitely. That's the most amazing thing, I think, with Alex or any rookie that ended up starting this year is, again, I think training camp was shorter than normal as well, I believe. And then obviously no preseason, as you say, because they start with 96 and then it goes to 70 something, doesn't it? And then they cut to the final 53. And obviously, because of the COVID situation, the practice squad rules were changed and made different, etc. So was he actually on the practice squad, or did he make the official 53, Sam?
He made the 53. Yeah, he did. We followed that closely as it was going through from first practice all the way, and there were a lot of positives coming out from defensive coordinator to some of the other coaches, some of the veterans that said some positive things. So we felt very confident that he was going to make the 53 man. I mean, we didn't think it was going to be a flop. It was so funny. A couple of people on Facebook on one of the Steelers groups had said flop and all this, and he won't make it. And I'm one of these people that likes to remember those people. So I did screenshots of both of those. I have them saved. And one of the guys was a Bengals fan, and I wanted to like post one of the articles, but God, after we lost to them second, I said, no, I can't do that. I'll save it till later. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Sam, you'll have plenty of time. You know what? I got to tell you something. Because I studied your son before he got drafted, and then I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that really, really was in his favor, I think, is, and I don't know, and again, you guys have done a great job raising him, obviously, because I've watched interview after interview and how he handles himself and all that kind of stuff. But it was really tough last year for these rookies because everything was done virtually. There were no walkthroughs. There were none of the other stuff that, you would have extra opportunities with guys and time with them and all that stuff. And I have a very close friend of mine that coaches in the NFL tell me, I am really concerned that we're going to cut guys because they can't learn fast enough. And I tell you what, when I saw how well Alex had done as a student at North Carolina, Charlotte, I said, okay, this guy's got a chance because he understands what it means to study. He understands how important it is how to learn, all those kinds of things. So again, huge, plus for him and the way you brought him up as a kid where education meant something.
I mean, him and my daughter, they didn't have a choice. My wife and educators, we both were high school teachers, and I ended up going to administration. So there were certain things. I remember my parents, who my father didn't graduate high school. My mother went to college for 1 year, but school was the expectation, and going to college wasn't like, ooh, it's something you want to do. No, it's something you're going to do. So yeah, that was just passed down. So I guess it was really funny. I would look at both of their grades over the years, and we were such perfectionists, particularly my wife. She's a math teacher, teaches calculus and all that great stuff in high school, and we were so demanding of what they needed to bring home and do. We always had to kind of back off some. So when they went to college, I mean, my mentality was, oh God, I'm thinking about those tests when he didn't get A's on it, he got a B or a C. Saying, I wonder how to do in college, and he did fine. he bought into the studying, man. He was really impressed. I remember I just had a vision. I should have taken a picture. I think it was Monday. He received the package from the Steelers that had the iPad with all the defensive snaps, and by noon he was on it. He was sitting there on the couch on that iPad.
That's great.
Yeah, he gets it. He gets it.
That's great.
How complicated is the defensive plays, etc. For does he have to learn everything, or are there certain packages he goes in on, so he has to only know a certain amount, or does he have to know the whole shebang?
I never asked that question, but from the conversations, my understanding is he pretty much had to know everything. I asked maybe some of the packages that he would be in with Bud and TJ, and he would talk about those, but then he would say, I'm going to get snaps at both positions to give them rest. So I do need to know all of them. So yeah, he was ready for that piece, and I remember the Giants game, the first game he played in, and getting that first tackle against Saquon. I was like, man, did a good job with that tight end. Got right over there and made that hit. And in my mind, Saquon Barkley was just such a big figure. Yeah, I knew he wasn't really tall, but he just was those eyes, that power. I mean, he made Saquon look kind of normal. I was like, my son's a big kid. So I was just like, okay, he can do this. He can do this. And I guess
he sure can.
Derrick Henry, wow. I mean, yeah. that's
sure can.
I remember joking with him before the Titans game. I said, man, please don't let Derrick stiff arm you like and he just laughed and said, nah, don't worry, he won't. I was like, because I get nightmares seeing those stiff arms.
I was going to say that knowing he's out there, want him to obviously make the plays, but you don't want to make him look like a clown, you know. And it's as he could do 25 brilliant tackles throughout the whole game, and then comes up one-on-one with Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry puts him on his arse. No one remembers all the brilliant stuff and the sacks and the fumble. All they remember, and all that would probably get shown on NFL Network, would be, oh, look, Derrick Henry does a stiff arm, and it's more about Derrick Henry's stiff arm than it is who's being stiff-armed, if that makes sense.
Funny,
so,
guys. Funny, I don't know if y'all remember the Cincinnati game. We lost at Cincinnati, and one of the plays where Ryan Finley scored that touchdown, I think it's like a 25, 30-yard touchdown run. And I pretty much, from the snap, I watch what he does, and I noticed how he went for the running back, and Finley went out and scored. And I remember saying bad word up in the stands, and either, I don't think it was right after the game, I think, but later during the week, I said, yeah, man. I said, yeah, they were saying how you need to, and I heard a lot of people say this, a lot of the people who analyze the games. I even think Collinsworth said it. I haven't gone back and watched the replay of the game yet, about how kind of rookie mistake, he's supposed to get the quarterback. And he said, no, me and TJ were getting a dive every time. The linebackers were supposed to have gotten the quarterback. And I said, oh, and that's the stuff people don't know.
Yeah.
But it made me feel good that, no, he did his part. But my first assumption was like everyone else that he was supposed to have the quarterback on that. But okay, I got you.
Yeah, so he put you right, because you were gonna say, well, you should have done this. And he said, well, no, actually, Pops, I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Okay. And to particularly to us non-football professionals, we make a lot of assumptions. Even those who know the game, they feel this was the play that was called, and we don't know sometimes. But and the reason I said that, I'm thinking, if nothing else, I don't be on one of those plays where they're gonna show that over and over, and this guy did wrong. But it's better than getting stiff arm to the ground. But Josh Norman will always be remembered as that, man. I'm telling you, that's, oh my gosh, that's the new Josh Norman memory for me.
Yeah, you're lucky he wasn't Josh Norman, I suppose, because I must have seen that clip 100 times by now. Every on NFL Network, that stiff arm is on there. It's terrible, really.
Crazy.
Jeff, just a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you touched on it when we were talking quarterbacks. What do you think of this? Deshaun Watson wants a trade. We're not trading him. The new coach comes in. The only reason I came in is because he's going to be my court. Do you buy that, or is it usual posturing?
Well, I think here's the reality that is relatively new to the National Football League, is the players have figured out now in the last probably really 5 years that they're the ones that have an awful lot of power. It used to be in the NFL, the players were basically indentured servants to the league. And, I think what started to change this whole thing was, obviously, if you go back in sports history, Curt Flood in this, I think it was in the early 70s, got free agency in pro baseball, in Major League Baseball. And then that was the first time the players realized, hey, if we band together, we can make it better for ourselves. We don't have to be caught in a situation, and that we can, like anybody else in society, can basically sell your wares to the highest bidder, because that was not the case. Now, what's happened when LeBron went from Cleveland to Miami, and they basically brokered a deal amongst themselves, three of the top stars in the NBA, to create a super team in Miami and win championships. That opened a lot of players' eyes to what they were, what the possibilities were for themselves. And I think when you look at Deshaun Watson, and I don't blame Deshaun Watson one bit, not a single bit, because it is a very short lifespan in pro sports. It is your earning potential is a very short window, and your opportunity to be a champion is extremely short. So you look at a guy like Matthew Stafford, who has tremendous skills, like Hall of Fame level skills. And he's been trapped in Detroit in a situation where he's never had players around him. He's never been protected. He's been beaten up, and he's 32 years old, and he's at the end of his career now, the second half of his career. And all he wants to do is go out and have an opportunity to be on a good football team. I think Deshaun sees that same thing. All the craziness that's going on with the Texans organization, he looks at it and says, is this where I want to be? Is this what I want to, is this going to get me to be? They all want to be a Super Bowl champion. That's the bottom line. That's what you play the game for. Yes, the money and the fame and all the other things. But to have that confetti fall on you one time, and more than one time if you're lucky, is an incredible thing to those guys. And so do I think he really is adamant about his position? I think we'll see, but I don't think he's fooling around. And what the Texans will do to get him back in the fold is critical, because you're talking about, Nick, we're talking about a guy, if you look at his numbers, just look at his numbers. And he's a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, surrounded by not much, right? And he's hang those kind of numbers. Put him on another football team where he's protected and he's got weapons around him and he's got a defense that can stop people. Who's to say that he doesn't go on, not a Tom Brady run, but certainly who's to say he doesn't go on a Joe Montana run or a Steve Young run or a Eli Manning run, all of these other guys who have won multiple Super Bowls. So I think it's a legit situation that the Texans are going to have to find a solution for. Now, they say they're not going to trade him, but ultimately, we saw this with Le'Veon Bell. He's financially able to sit out a season, right? And then what happens then? So it's going to be you don't want it to become a public game of chicken, right? Where it's just some adversarial thing in the media, because the media wants that. They want all that hype, right? So I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a real test for Nick Caserio, who's a very young general manager and his first time being a general manager. Mr. McNair, the owner of the franchise, did not speak at the press conference because I don't think he wanted to handle some of the tough questions that he was going to be asked. He's got to come out from hiding. He's got to stand up about what's going on. What's Nick Easterby's situation with the Texans? David Culley is a very, very good man. He's a great guy, positive energy guy. I'm happy for David Culley, but that's just the start of this thing. There's a lot of healing that's got to get done in Houston.
Just had a question put up by Carl, and he's logged in at the Shank Club. So he's asking you, Sam, what is more likely to happen? TJ goes to Houston or JJ goes to the Steelers?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Part of me says neither, but if I had to choose one of them, oh God, I can't fathom either one of them, because deep down I'm one of these people thinking, hey, maybe we can get Deshaun, but we'd have to give up it's just not enough they could give up. I just don't see Art Rooney letting TJ go anywhere.
I agree with Sam.
That's the most solid piece of anything.
You look at the 2 contracts, Nick. JJ doesn't have any more guarantees in his contract. So he would be the one that would move. TJ, there's no way you could, as young as TJ is, as good a player as he is, there is no way the Steelers would let him go.
That's the same with Bosa in San Francisco. I've seen, give Bosa in there and do that. There's no way on earth either TJ or Nick Bosa go anywhere because they're the cornerstone pieces of those defenses. And you don't give that up. I mean, I honestly don't think me personally, from a Niners thing, if you read and believe everything you see on Twitter, the Niners have allegedly been shopping Garoppolo and nobody wants him. So that's already a problem. And the picks you would have to give up to get someone like Deshaun Watson. Now, I know draft picks are hit and miss, but you wouldn't give up 3 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and that just for that one player, because I know it's a team game, but what happens if the first game, whichever team, either Stafford or Deshaun Watson end up, they get injured, and you've given away all that capital, and you're back to square one for maybe a season, and who knows, it may be that bad of an injury that he doesn't come back ever.
So I think you answered your own question by just look at the 49ers. I mean, and Jimmy G wasn't that much. I mean, he wasn't, quote, a franchise quarterback in that system, and they lost him, and, they struggled. And so these are not easy questions, man. You got a finite amount of money, and you got a finite amount of draft picks, and you got to try and get the best football team you can. That's why it's so important that you draft well. And teams, teams that draft well, teams that know what they're drafting to and for, those are the teams that have a chance to succeed over time because they're not constantly making up for mistakes in free agency. Because when you go down that road in free agency, Nick, you're going to pay more than they're worth. It's just the way it is. That's the market, right?
You've only got to look at soccer and some of these players, Jeff, that, because they're British, for some reason, everyone thinks British players should cost 4 times more than other players. And it's always happened in soccer. And I just, as a Niners fan, I want what's best for my team. And I don't think mortgaging the now is the answer. Do I think they're going to get rid of Jimmy G and bring in? I think it's more realistic they bring in Stafford, but I personally would want to stick with Jimmy G, personally, because I don't. Every time I've watched a Lions game, and it doesn't matter how many years you go back, the commentators are always, Stafford's playing through an injury. Stafford's had this. Stafford's done that. He doesn't miss a lot of games, admittedly, but he's always got an injury. And what's to say that one of these injuries doesn't turn out to be terrible and we end up having to watch, I can't even say their names, Mullins and Bethard again, because I don't think my nerves could stand another season of that. It's just, I don't know. I've seen that Stafford's signing with the Niners today, but then you see other things that say that the Rams are giving up on Goff. Basically, apparently that's definitely, they haven't committed to him. They can trade one for the other because of salary, and it's we should be talking about the Super Bowl and the Senior Bowl and the draft coming up. And things that have gone on this year, and there's so much hatred. Honestly, the amount of arguments I've seen over Watson and Twitter and Stafford and where he's going, and then someone puts out this and that, and it just turns into a bun fight, and it's just crazy. We're a week away from the Super Bowl. Whether your team's in it or not, surely that's what people should be talking about, not something that may never happen. And all these people that start these accounts and say, "Oh, I've heard a rumor from a source," and whenever I see it, if I don't know the people, I send them a picture of Heinz tomato ketchup because that's probably the only source they've got. Where do you sort of stand on that, Jeff? With all this, that all these people supposedly know things and don't know things, and it just seems crazy to me. There seems to be about 4 or 5 new accounts for various teams, for various people start every week.
Well, I mean, obviously in this world that we live in, as much media is out there, as much as active as social media is, as much, it just, it's so different than it was 10 years ago even. And so I think there's a lot of pressure amongst a group of guys, and you can name them, Schefter and that whole crew of guys, to try and always scoop one another, to get the scoops. And I've watched how it works, and because we got the same issue in the Canadian Football League. Those guys try and get sources, they try and get scoops, they try and get. It's pretty easy. You can track it down pretty close, right? If all of a sudden they get a scoop from a team, and then they make a statement about an assistant coach on that team or how much he's ready for an opportunity, whatever. Basically, what's happened is that guy's brokered a good comment for a little information on the inside, right? And I mean, that's the way it works. It's just the way it is. That's what makes it so hard when you're an organization, and why they manage. I'll give you a case in point. I have a friend who's going to be announced as the quarterback coach in Indianapolis, right? And I wanted to talk to him and do an interview with him. And he said I do it, but I have to check with the media people. And the media people said, we're not allowing you to speak to anybody until after you've been announced in public. So that's just how tightly they want to control it. But eventually you can't control it, because you got 53 guys on the roster that are all trying to sell their brand and, looking for this and looking for that. So it's tough. But in some ways, Nick, it doesn't bother me, because I think the more we talk about it, the more we stir it up, the more, there's a lot of it is just air, right? But, shoots, we're all locked in here with COVID-19. So I'll take it. I mean, it's not, to me, it doesn't hurt anything until somebody says that they know something that they really don't, or make a comment that hurts somebody that they shouldn't make because they don't have the facts. Those kind of bother me. But just to speculate and say, well, wouldn't it be nice to see Stafford in San Francisco? I think it's just, kind of, food for thought.
Do you ever get asked, Jeff, for inside information by people in the media when you're obviously doing your day job over in Hamilton?
Yeah, but I won't go there, right? I won't go there, because that's not. There's no possible good that, as I see it, that could come of it, right? And so, I'm all for free information, and how accessible I always am, Nick. But when somebody asks me something about particularly another player, another coach, what's happening inside the team or any of that, that's sacred stuff. That stuff belongs in the locker room. When I was a kid growing up, my dad was in pro baseball, I remember one place, I can't remember with the Oakland A's or who it was, they had a sign in their locker room, and it said, "What you see here, what you say here, what you do here, let it stay here." And that's a pretty good way to live your life, right? What happens inside the locker room, inside the football team, should stay inside the football team. And, I think that's probably the best way to explain it.
But I'm guessing as well, Jeff, it could possibly, if you did say something off the record to, I don't know, the Adam Schefter of the Hamilton Times or whatever, it could be quite easy to find out who it was that leaked it.
It's not. Yeah, it's not hard to track. And again, it's not. To me, it comes down to what's there. There has to be, at least in my opinion, there has to be a sense of sacredness about what goes on in the meeting room, what goes on in the locker room. The conversations with players, those kind of things don't belong in the media, right? I really don't. I really believe that. You have to, it's like when you say to a player, and I say this to players in a couple of our first meetings, say, I'm going to be your heat shield. If you don't play well, if you don't perform well, I'll take the shots in the media. I'll protect you that way. And what happens in our meeting, it stays in here, because that's the trust we have to have in one another. It's awful when I see coaches go out and start to point the finger at players. And then once you do that, then you got problems. You got real serious problems, I think. Nick, I got to go. That's my 45 minutes, man.
As ever, Jeff, always a pleasure. I know Sam's got to go as well. That's why I got you guys on first before I get the other rap that are sat in the background on.
Appreciate it. Sam, it's great to see you again. Tell Alex I say congratulations.
Take care.
Right.
Cheers. Thank you. Give our best to Alex. Take care, guys.
All right. See you, fellas.
Thank you.
There you go. That's Jeff and Sam. Carl, there you are.
Good afternoon.
Snack helmet.
You seen the snack helmet? my girlfriend got me these small LED lights you get, which was just like a 3D image of a helmet and a certain team. Well, she got me a Patriots one, so I basically stuck it in the helmet and just using it to light up. So,
have you seen the amount of crap that has been going on about these bloody snack helmets on? Not so much on Twitter, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
but Jesus, on Facebook, I'm not in the NFL UK Facebook group, but someone said on Twitter yesterday or Thursday or Wednesday, whenever it was, you've got to go and look at some of these threads and some of the comment. It's a fucking plastic snack helmet. Why lose shit?
There's more bitching that goes on in that chat room than what it does in a whole series of The Only Way Is Essex. It's just stupid.
It's amazing.
No, I ended up succumbing to temptation, end up getting one. But you can get your own personalized one from another website, ukAmerica.com, I think it is, and you can get your own personalized one. So you can get a red helmet with your 49ers logo, and that's it. And it's actually quite good quality, bit expensive, but
I've seen them. They're about 3 times the price, and I'm tempted to get one of those little ones. And I was going to buy a big one just for a laugh, but unfortunately, he didn't find it funny because it wouldn't have fitted in with his shitty decor in his flat. But that's another story. He'll be able to see his comment when he watches it back later. How's your week been? Obviously, I know you were a bit down and you saw your girlfriend and everything. So that was all good. How's that? Is that all back on track again?
Oh, hugely. Absolutely hugely. I think when you haven't seen your loved one for nearly close to a month now, it's just a relief. It's just an absolute relief now. So, but now this week has been really, really good.
But it was for you, but that's another story. Right. We have a couple of more people to bring on. As ever, look. Sitting there, smug as anything. As ever. Scott, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Yeah, all good. Although you're wearing an AFC Champions t-shirt, I usually think a team of your quality would say, "Nah, we'll wait until we get our Super Bowl t-shirt."
Just get both.
Thing is, Carl, he's been having trouble getting his Super Bowl shirt because he's been bitching about it all week. So he can't get it. I told you, I will send you a link to where I got my Niner ones, and they had the patches on, they had the 100-year thing on, and they had the Super Bowl patch on, and they were like a third of the price. Because I don't know how much they cost in States, but a jersey over here is like 140 quid for a proper game one, which is ridiculous.
A proper game one, yeah. I mean, it's even worse if you're a hockey fan, because I think for a real authentic one, it's about 200 quid. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they sell the crappy jersey with it's not even the real Super Bowl patch. It's the iron-on numbers that break when you wash it, and they flake off. And
this is not iron-on.
No, I'm saying that's all they sell.
Sorry.
They don't sell the actual.
That's what they sell.
The limited Nike Vapor game jersey with the real Super Bowl patch. They only sell the crappy, cheap version of it, and it drives me insane. I don't understand why they don't do it. But anyway, that's.
I'm actually surprised. We've got one more person to bring on at the moment. I'll bring Craig in a minute. But I'm surprised you haven't got your sling it back, run it back, drag it back, or is it run it back shirt on? I don't know what they're saying is. Is it sling it, run it, bring it? Who knows?
Run it back.
Run it back.
I prefer drag it back myself. Right, let's bring on a new member to the Shank Club NFL. I can see he's an Atlanta fan. I didn't know that, but I could obviously see his jersey. Craig from UK Draft. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on, guys. Pleasure to be with you.
No,
how are we all?
Thanks for coming on at short notice. Do you want to let everyone know, obviously, what your Twitter handle is and what you do before we get into the nuts and bolts, as we say?
Sure thing, yeah. So I mean, I did a bit of kind of draft nicking kind of while I was at university for an American site, and I've kind of got back into it with all the lockdown going on. So I've set up my own site, ukdraft.co.uk. I'm on Twitter at UK_draft, and just love talking about the NFL draft, keeping an eye on what's going on with the college prospects. Looking forward to watching the Senior Bowl this afternoon, and just keep talking and writing about it for the next 3 months, I guess.
Is it 6 o'clock tonight, the Senior Bowl?
7:30.
Oh, that's all right. I should still be awake by then with a bit of luck. Depends what I do after this. So, Carl, did you manage to get that slide put together?
I have indeed, but I could do with you've already sent a link to Dion, haven't you?
I have.
I kind of need him on for this segment, so if we could go straight
to
that's
fine. Okay.
the draft, because I think it puts in some better context.
So, right, someone's just told me they haven't seen the link, so I'm going to have to send it again. Let's talk about the Senior Bowl for a bit. Carl, who are you looking forward to? I know you're not watching it live because your girlfriend's coming over. I thought you might have sat down instead of watching a film together, arm in arm, and watched it. That's pretty poor from you, mate. You did mention before the show some people that you were looking forward to seeing. So why don't you run those past Craig while I just send out this email very quickly?
Obviously, the two quarterbacks in question in the Senior Bowl was obviously Mac Jones out of Alabama and Kyle Trask out of Florida. If you've seen any of the practices so far, I think Mac Jones took a slight knock to the ankle and he's questionable to even play tonight. I mean, I don't know what the situation is. What do you see out of Mac Jones that could really interest like the higher top 10 teams rather than, because apparently he's meant to be falling between 10 and 20 roughly to the New England Patriots, but that's just a wild guess. What is your take on things?
I think that's about right. I think if you look at him physically, he's not quite up there with the Zach Wilsons, the Trey Lances in terms of his height and his stature. So again, behind some of the bigger offensive linemen, there is a worry there that he might struggle. But I think you've only got to look at how he's performed behind, he's had Landon Dickerson as his center, who's a 6'6", 6'7" guy. He's performed absolutely fine behind them. I mean, he set, you look at all the records Joe Burrow set in the SEC last year, and Mac Jones has beaten or gone close on pretty much all of those this year. He's incredibly poised in the pocket. He looks like an incredibly polished passer, which you'd expect coming out of a Nick Saban team. So I think you're looking for, how does he operate with a bunch of new guys? Really, how does he get the receivers? How quickly has he developed that chemistry? That's the sort of thing you'll look for if he plays this afternoon. And can you get him straight into playing in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, he's not as flashy or can run outside of the pocket to actually run on from the throw. Someone like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields could do that. Even Zach Wilson is capable of. But the one thing that has come to my attention, he may not be very, very athletic. I mean, he's by no means athletic. You could say he's a smaller, slimmed down version of Big Ben Roethlisberger. But the one thing he's very good at is he's very instinctive in the pocket, and he can read his visions very, very quickly. He can release that ball quite quickly. But then when he was playing for Alabama, he had probably one of the top offensive lines in front of him, and you had you had about the same. You had same amount of quality weapons as Alabama had, as what Kansas City have right now. It's just everywhere. So it'll be interesting to see if and when he does get drafted, what team he goes to, because he could be put into a bad situation where the O-line may not be as good, the weapons, there may be very, very limited use, and he's got to think on his feet. Could that be one of his downfalls?
It could be. I mean, I see him as the sort of guy, Nick, I've heard you talk earlier on during this segment, or during this, whatever you want to call this, earlier on during the show, that you want to stick with Jimmy G. But Mac Jones actually could be a guy who fits perfectly in a Kyle Shanahan type offense. Get the ball out of his hands quickly, find your playmakers, use your running backs out the backfield, because that's exactly, as you say, what he had at Alabama. He had Devontae Smith, Najee Harris around him, Jalen Waddle when he was healthy. They were getting the ball out of his hands quickly and letting the playmakers make plays. So that's the sort of offense I could see him really performing well in.
Mac Jones has been mentioned, or he was mentioned until bloody Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo's all getting kicked out, etc. He was one of the names that was mentioned that they could possibly draft. So I am, if he does play, I am quite interested to see. I mean, I have to profess, I don't watch any college football. Very, very rarely. I watched a cut of the bowl games because I was awake at stupid o'clock and it was on, and I just wanted to see, what the hype was about and things like that. So I'm not really a college guy, and I also think with a lot of these players, whoever they are, if you only watch their highlight reels, obviously it's only highlights, so you're not going to see the fumbles, the this, the that, the other, the missed throws and things. So you could see him fitting in at the 49ers if Jimmy G stays there and they don't take Stafford, etc. You could see him being a fit for this offense?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's the guy. He's the type of guy who you want in a sort of West Coast type offense. As I say, someone who's going to get the ball, out of his hands quickly. Look to let his playmakers make plays, and I think that's what Kyle Shanahan likes to do. So I could definitely see him being a fit there.
And has he got a deep ball? Because that again is one of the things that. Hang on, let's just bring Dion in. Bear with me a sec. That's one of the things one of the knocks on Jimmy G is he hasn't got a deep ball and things like that. Can he actually sling it as well, Craig?
He can. He's not in this. Sure, you're going to look at a guy like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance if you want somebody who's going to throw it, 60 yards on a rope for you. But Mac Jones can throw a very, very pretty 35-foot downfield ball. He doesn't get asked to do it very often. It's the way he's played, but he absolutely can do it.
Awesome. Is there anyone else we should be looking out for? Hello, Dion. Nice to see you, sir. We'll bring you in shortly. Looking cool there, man. What are you playing, Madden?
No, actually, I'm currently playing the Division 2.
Right. Okay, we'll get you on because Carl needs you on for a segment he wants to do. So we'll come back. We'll come back to you. He's got a slide that he's made up that he needs your opinions on. We'll get to that shortly. Carl.
Yes.
Any other players you were looking at that you'd like to know about, or at least tell us about?
Wide receiver out of Florida, Craig. Let me just try and find it. Kadarius Toney out of the Florida Gators. I've seen a lot of, again, as Nick said, they're only highlights, they're only like 10-second snippets. But all I've been seeing this guy do is break defensive backs' ankles, just leaving them in their dust. Not due to speed like Tyreek Hill, like straight up the field, but his route running and how he turns quickly, sends the defensive back on his backside, and he is a unique catcher of the ball. How far out do you think Kadarius Toney could go up in the draft? Could he even go up as far as, say, the first round? Because apparently he's meant to be a day 2 pick.
I've got him. I think he could be anywhere between a kind of mid to late 20s, so late first round to high second round kind of pick. He's not as kind of physical as the guys we're talking about at the top end of the draft. So the Jamar Chase is. He's not quite as much of a Swiss Army knife as someone like Devontae Smith, for example, the Heisman winner. But you're absolutely right. He is athletic. He makes moves and he makes defenders miss. And a lot of coaches are going to look at that and go, you know what, I'm going to have to find ways to kind of scheme you open. He's not necessarily the best off the line of scrimmage, but if you can find a way to scheme him open, you're absolutely right. He makes defenders miss, and that hurts teams if you can get a guy like that out in space.
And the likes of Jalen, obviously we know Deontay Smith is going to go. For me, from my mock draft, I've got him going to the Dolphins at number 3. I just think you can't pass up on a talented guy like that. What about Jalen Waddle?
I was just going to say, I think you and I are probably the two who've got Devontae Smith at number 3 then, because everybody else says you can't draft a 5'9" wide receiver at number 3 overall, and I've just got to disagree. Jalen Waddle, I think, is somewhere in. He could well go as high as the Eagles, potentially at number 6. But I think he's probably more around that sort of 10 to 15 type range. I think, if Devontae Smith goes at 3, the Eagles potentially have a shot at Jamar Chase at 6. You're then running down that list a little bit. Who's going to be the next, who's going to want to take the 3rd wide receiver? And that's where I think you're looking in that sort of 10 to 15 range for Jalen Waddle.
Kyle Pitts, this tight end out of Florida is just simply outstanding. He's a generational talent. I made a comment last week on this show that I think one had projected that he could fall as far as number 12, which is the San Francisco 49ers. And I told this to our fellow friend John, said, how would you feel if Kyle Pitts dropped to 12? Because then you'd have George Kittle and Kyle Pitts to deal with, plus the likes of Brandon Ayuk and so on. And he's like, we've got more offensive needs. But I said, smart franchises don't pass up on talents like this.
Yeah, and Trask is a guy, not Trask, Pitts is a guy you could see spending a load of time lined up at wide receiver. I'm not sure. I think that, I'm not sure he's a nailed on top 10 pick, to be honest. And I think that comes down to positional need. If you look at, is he better than Jamar Chase as a receiver? No. If we're then talking about him or Jalen Waddle and where are they going to go? I think both of these guys, because that's how you're going to use a guy like Kyle Pitts in the NFL. You're going to use him as a wide receiver. You're not going to stick him in line and make him block an awful lot. So you're talking about, are you going him or Jalen Waddle? Again, I think they're somewhere in that sort of 10 to 15. He could well be a guy that the 49ers looked at. But I think, for me at the minute, I think I've got him going to New England. I think New England would absolutely, whoever they're going to have playing quarterback for them next year, I think they would love to have a weapon like Kyle Pitts to throw the ball to.
I do agree with you for Kyle Pitts, but I think, I don't know, we don't know what we have seen so far from the 2 Titans we drafted last year, which was Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene. From what I'm hearing, Dalton Keene is going to be turning into a hybrid fullback. But Asiasi, we still don't know. We saw what glimpses he had in week 17, but it was against the New York Jets, and you can't really put highlights against the Jets because, well, they were just shit, frankly. But yeah, Pitts would be a good option. What about linebacker Micah Parsons? He has been turning a lot of heads recently.
I've currently got Micah Parsons to my Falcons at 4 because I believe that in terms of the Falcons draft, they could very easily go quarterback at 4. If the Dolphins haven't, and one of those, presumably Lawrence is gone, so one of Wilson or Fields is sitting there at 4, I think there's a chance the Falcons do it, and I think there's a chance Arthur Smith says, you're going to sit for a couple of years behind Matt Ryan. There's no chance we're trading Ryan's contract. He's going to be there next season. But you do that bit of forward looking for the franchise. But I think if you're sitting there and the Dolphins have gone with Smith at 3, as you and I both have him, then I think you're talking about it's either Penei Sewell or it's Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons just makes plays. He is a highlight reel on defense. And you look at the way the Falcons play defense this year, Deion Jones and Foyoluakon, two excellent playmakers, get sideline to sideline, lots of speed. Micah Parsons will give them that as well. And for a returning defensive coordinator like Dean Pease, I think he'd love to have someone like Parsons. So I think Parsons could go at 4. I think if he doesn't, I can't see him sliding out the top 10. He is that good.
Does Zach Wilson not wet the taste buds at all?
Well, as I say, I think there's a chance that Arthur Smith does bring in a quarterback, whether it's Wilson or Justin Fields at 4. But then they will need to know that person is going to sit on the bench for at least a year and maybe 2 with Matt Ryan's contract, unless Ryan's play completely falls off a cliff. And I think you've got to then think, actually, could a different player impact our franchise more now? And yes, okay, we might need to go and find ourselves a quarterback in 2 years' time.
Talking of mock drafts and things and Carl Pitts, I saw that what's his name? Does Move the Sticks podcast. DJ Daniel Jeremiah, that's the one.
Daniel Jeremiah,
He had Pitts going to the Niners at 12. Dion, what do you think about that? Is that something that excites you, makes you wonder where they're getting all this in, where they're taking this? I mean, he even had Justin Fields. I think it was top 15, maybe 8, 9, I can't remember. But I mean, I don't think Justin Fields is going to go that far back. But what do you think about Pitts at 12, Dion?
I don't like it. For me, it's a situation where I would rather go with a defensive back. I'd rather go defensive back, or I'd rather find a guard. Our offensive line has to improve, and we need a defensive back. We literally have no cornerback signed this year. None. Zero. None.
So you pretty much would rather take 2 corners, Patrick Surtain II out of Alabama, or I'm just going to vote Khalid is it Khalid Farley? Yeah, Khalid Farley out of Virginia Tech.
I'll tell you this. I like Farley's size. The thing is, Farley, if you look at Farley's size, he's very similar to a Kello Witherspoon, but he's better. And then it's in the same vein, if you have Patrick Surtain II, look at his dad. I'll take the pedigree. It's just like I was saying before when I did a show on just the running backs. I'll take Frank Gore Jr. when he comes out of college because I know what his daddy did. So if I already know that you're born and bred for this, why would I pass on you? Look at Antoine Winfield Jr. He's in the goddamn Super Bowl, and he played pretty spectacular this year. And look at his daddy. His daddy did a damn good job while he was there, while he was in the league. So it's just, for me, I just feel like we have more pressing needs than to draft ourselves, a wide receiver, or even draft, a QB. It just doesn't make sense. And right now, with all this crap about us being in the running for Brokeback Stafford, like it just doesn't make sense. You're going to give up picks for a guy who's not going to last you but 2 years. Like, at this point, you might as well just stick with Jimmy and pray to God that Zach Wilson falls or something. That's about as good as it's going to get.
Dion, if you like the NFL bloodlines, what's your view on J.C. Horn at 12?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have not watched a lot of game tape on J.C. Horn, but who's his dad?
Jay Horn, the former Saints receiver.
Yeah. Jay Horn was good. He was good, but I honestly can't give you an opinion because I don't know much about J.C. Horn. I've heard about him. I've heard rumblings about him in the draft. So, I mean, when it comes to bloodlines, it's hit or miss because Deion Sanders' kid had, Deion Sanders' oldest son tried to play ball. He was nowhere near as good as his daddy, So it is hit or miss. But when you see it and firsthand, then yeah, it works out. Because look at his younger son, Shador. Shador's with him at Jackson State, and I'm pretty sure Shador is going to turn out to be a fantastic quarterback. The dude's got his dad as Deion Sanders. So he's got plugs with every known quarterback there is. He could go and work with Tom House. You know why? Because Deion probably knows Tom Brady. He can go out and hang out with Michael Vick and understand how to be able to be an athletic quarterback. And then Michael Vick can tell him, hey, don't do like I did, where I didn't study in Atlanta. I didn't study the playbook. I just went out there and played. I was an athlete. So I just did what I had to do. So for me, I don't know much about the kid Horn, but his dad wasn't too bad. His pops wasn't too bad. But I honestly think once again at 12, DB or offensive lineman just to shore up things. Because if we are going to bring in a Matthew Stafford, or we are going to try to trade and give up a bunch of stuff for Deshaun Watson, and there's like 1,000 picks, which to me sounds flat out ridiculous. I don't care who you are. You could have been Tom Brady in his prime and he was winning Super Bowls. I'm not giving up 4 and 5 first-round picks for you. That just seems stupid because you're mortgaging your future on one player, and then you have nobody to surround him with. Though you give Brady credit because Brady pretty much did it most of the time with nothing but just average receivers. And I can say that because, to be honest with you, and I have no problem saying this, Brady loved him some white receivers, and it worked. Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola. He had like a host. I mean, he even had, I think Hogan was there for like a small span of time, but he did it with most. He proved that, hey, I don't need ridiculously athletic, freakish, African American guys. I can go out to these white dudes and get badass. Rex Burkhead is cold. If he gets going, he gets moving. That's a bad man. So it's just, for me, it's going to be DB or offensive lineman. I have no need for a wide receiver. Let's stick with the guys that we have. We might as well just go ahead and give KB a multi-year extension instead of playing with him and keep stringing him along in these one-year deals, which to me seems very stupid. Because somebody come along and offer that man the right amount of money, he can go out there and get busy, and it'd be just our luck he pull a damn AJ Jenkins and learn how to catch the ball when he leaves.
Yeah, I've got JC Horn going to the New York Jets at number 23. That would have been Seattle's pick had it not been for the Jamal Adams trade.
Mm-hmm.
So
that worked for him.
Yep, makes sense.
It's going to be fascinating, the draft, and I know probably Dion, the same as me, cannot wait for the speculation to die where those two quarterbacks end up anywhere else except San Francisco and they can move on. Because I don't know about you, Dion, I was saying it earlier to Coach and Sam Highsmith. I'm getting fed up with the infighting, the bitching, the I know something you don't, you know something I don't, and all that crap. Yeah. It's just driving me up the wall. And I'm looking at Twitter now, and I've just done. Obviously, people in America are just kind of waking up and getting stuck. And it's like, have we signed anyone yet? Have we done this? Why hasn't John Lynch done that? And it's just driving me mad.
You're not gonna get it. That's the issue. It's none of us know what these guys are gonna do. We're all speculating on the moves that they're gonna make. At the end of the day, I will say this. If I know anything about the San Francisco 49ers, it's they will make a move that they feel is best for them and not best for anyone else. I don't believe that they get in on Deshaun Watson just because what you have to give up. Deshaun has said very clearly, I do not want to go somewhere where they basically have traded away the whole team just to get them. That makes no sense. The kid, I'll say this. I have to respect Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson did what Steven Jackson couldn't. He got his money and he said, I don't want to be here when an organization is just going to keep losing. I'm not going to do that. I can't. Steven Jackson sat in St. Louis and had the nerve to go on live television when they asked him why did he leave St. Louis. He said he got tired of losing. It took you 8 years to figure out you wasn't finna win nothing in St. Louis? Really? No, it took you all that money that they was paying you to figure out that it was time and they wasn't giving you another big contract. And what did he do when he went to Atlanta? Nothing. All his good years are gone. All the tread was off of the tire, so to speak. So you got to make it about what you really want. You have to submit your legacy for what it really is and what you really truthfully are playing this game for. Are you here to win Super Bowls or are you here to get paid? If you're here to get paid, man, hey, I respect that. Get your money and get it while you can. Pull a Sam Bradford and rob every team you went to because you give them 8 games at a bare minimum and you give them nothing more because you'll be sitting on the bench earning double-digit millions of dollars, making absolutely no goddamn sense.
Watson has to leverage over
Oh,
over all of this massively.
Mhm.
I mean, the only thing the Houston Texans can do is, okay, you're not going to turn up to training camp. Okay, we'll fine you. You're not going to turn up to preseason. Okay, we're going to fine you. I think something like they're going to fine him $625,000 every regular season game that he does not play. But
And it doesn't make a difference.
But that's just going to cause so much animosity, not just in the organization, but in the fan base as well. You know, you don't want to see your franchise just being dragged through the dirt day in and day out. Like, there needs to be some resolve. Get it resolved, or let Watson go.
Yeah, makes sense. Do the same thing.
What does Watson expect, though? Honestly, you sign that deal, then you come back. Now you want out, and you're saying, "Well, I don't want to go to a team that's going to trade away everything to get me." Well, do you think Houston's just going to give you away for nothing? I mean,
he has a no release clause. He has no trade. He has a no trade clause.
Yeah, I know. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, he wants out. He wants them to trade him, but he wants them to get below market value or whatever they're going to need to get back for him. I mean, you think that does he think Houston's just going to give away a top 5 quarterback? I mean, that to me, that's a contradiction right there. I want out, but I don't want to go to a team that's going to give up a bunch to get me. Well, then they're not going to trade you if they don't get a bunch back, Deshaun.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's a lofty goal to go and say, hey, make sure you put me somewhere where I can be, a winner. But at the same time, like Carl said, he does have the leverage. So I would say personally, if you're going.
He's under
contract,
go ahead. So he's not under that much leverage. I mean, they can just not trade him, and what's he going to do? Not play?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
he's got. I mean, it is helping him because he's got $80 million guaranteed.
And he's losing a year of his career.
Doesn't matter. He's got $80 million guaranteed, and quarterbacks can lose a year of their career and come back and play. They have that luxury.
He's more interested in winning by wanting out of Houston than he is the money.
They should have thought about that before trading DeAndre Hopkins for a ham sandwich.
But to be honest,
my point is Deshaun's making a bunch of demands that aren't going to be met, and he's just I don't. You can't.
If I'm Deshaun Watson and I've got guaranteed money, I don't give a shit whether they trade me or not. I'll just sit there, take the money. Seriously, that's what I would do. And we've got another guest popped in, the real FTP. George, how are you, my brother?
Morning. Had some technical difficulties on my end, but glad I could be here.
So it wasn't me sending it to the wrong email address 25 times. That's good. That's good.
It's all good. It's all good.
So tell me, we've been talking about Deshaun Watson to the Niners. Do we draft a QB? Where do we do? And I've seen you being very vocal on Twitter regarding the whole situation and people that are supposedly in the know, etc.
Yeah, very vocal. That's one way to put it.
Thanks, George.
I've been yes, I've definitely been pretty vocal. I think I get frustrated with the fan base because of some of the things that they throw out there. Most of the stuff just doesn't make any sense, and a lot of it I get pissed off with people who throw stuff out there just to get reactions and look to stir the pot and whatnot. I mean, from the very beginning, I've been a Jimmy supporter, only because for the most part, he's been the quarterback that the Niners have had in quite some time. And that's regardless of what anybody feels about him, regardless of his shortcomings, regardless of the fact that some people just don't like him. Just he can't throw the deep ball. Hasn't been as mobile since he got hurt. Put all that stuff aside.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, put all that stuff aside. He's still been the best quarterback we've had, and it pisses me off when people just discredit what he's actually been able to do. And the argument that automatically gets thrown back is, well, he's been hurt. Well, yeah, no shit, he's been hurt, but okay. When he's there and he's playing, he's been lights out and took us to the Super Bowl. For me, it's like, what do you want from a quarterback when he's on the team and he's in your squad and he's there giving it his all to make you guys win. I mean, we have a phenomenal run game. What? We're supposed to ignore it just to showcase a quarterback? No. You take advantage of the fact it's a team. The team aspect is you have a phenomenal run game. You run the damn ball. You don't put Jimmy in situations where he's gonna set himself up for failure, just for what? To make fans happy? Fuck that. And whenever anything has been able to, has been put on his plate, he's come through. He's come through time and time again. He's come through. Everyone loves to go back to the deep pass that he missed in the Super Bowl. Well, he missed that one pass. One fucking pass. One pass. He missed on that one pass. If he does land, we're not here. We're not here having this controversy. We're not here talking about all of this stuff. All of this stuff goes away. You still have the handful of haters out there talking their smack, this and that and the other. But for the most part, the fan base would be ecstatic and happy as shit because why? Because we got another ring. We got something to brag about. And it wouldn't even have mattered. The conversations wouldn't even have mattered. So the whole talk about getting Watson, getting Stafford, my stance has always been, look, if the Niners can get an upgrade, an actual upgrade, great, go for it, do it. I'm not so much of a Jimmy supporter that I'm going to say and tell you, you know what, I'd rather have Jimmy over Watson, because that's crazy too. That's not logical thinking in and of its own. If Watson's available and they can get it without crippling the team for the next 5 years, great. I'm all for it. I'll welcome Watson as a fan. I'll welcome Watson with open arms. And I'll do the same thing with Stafford. Stafford, to me, he's an upgrade. But okay, but I'm not going to sit here and get on the bandwagon of sitting here and saying that Jimmy's garbage. I don't think that. I mean, and that's just me. For me as a fan, I'm there to support who's on my squad. When he's out there wearing our colors, you know what? That's my guy. If he messes up and is terrible, yeah, I'll say my piece and I'll say what I have to say about it. But I'm not going to sit here and throw him to the wolves and want a public execution of the guy because he missed one deep throw in the Super Bowl.
I think
So
Jimmy.
For me, it's.
I think Jimmy. Go on, Nick.
Let's pretend that Watson was on the team when we went to the Super Bowl, and take Jimmy out, put Deshaun Watson in. We rode pretty much the run game to the Super Bowl.
That we did.
Now, can you imagine if that happened then or in future that we get Watson and 60% of the games we rely on the run game for whatever reason? Then the scenario, whoever's behind center is going to be fucking trash. Why did we get him? We mortgaged our future and we're still running the ball, etc., etc. So
yeah, and then Shanahan becomes
So exactly, it will be someone else's fucking fault. So they just move it because it's Jimmy, it's this, it's that, and I'm kind of hoping that whatever happens gets done because again, depending on which Twitter feed you read, apparently Stafford was close and he was going to sign today, but apparently now he's going to the Rams and some shit, which it just I was saying it earlier before everyone joined. All of this is just frustrating.
If it's not Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport saying it, you can just go ahead and dismiss that as noise. There's
Boom.
2 or 3.
He hit it right there. He hit it right there.
2 or 3 guys
give it to him,
really
Mr. Rogers.
What the fuck
Give
is
it to
going
him.
on behind the scenes? And everybody else is pretending like they know to try to get followers and
Yes,
trying
sir.
to pretend they're in the know. They're not in the know.
That's what they call clickbait, baby.
Fan 647B12 is not behind the scenes talking to anybody that knows what's going on.
Only thing reported.
Sorry, Cole, go on.
only three reporters I trust when it comes to any sort of activity to do with players being traded, this, that, and the other is Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, and Ian Rappaport. They're the only three people I trust. Even our Patriots own Nick Giardi, I always have a little bit of a question mark over, thinking, yeah, I don't quite believe you yet. Let's find out from a better source first. But everyone else, I have seen so many times where I thought I was there's talks in the works for Matthew Stafford. It goes, it's none of the top three. No, I don't believe you until we get it from the main source itself.
I think definitely the four, I would say, would be the three NFL Network guys and Schefter, because, I mean, Jay Glazer on Fox, he's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Glazer's good, yeah.
Certain things that he puts out are true, and others I think are a bit of, I don't know, posturing maybe to try and keep up with the other guy. But it's I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who the QB is going to be. But like you said, George, if it's Jimmy G, I'm fine with that. And I know it's a business and things like that, but I don't know whether he reads social media or whatever. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
I hope he doesn't.
He does not. I can tell you that for a fact. I know he does not. I have a couple of I have an actual coworker that I have who literally went to college and high school with Jimmy. Jimmy does not read social media for any reason. He said he learned that from Tom Brady, because Brady used to tell him all the time, if you listen to the critics and you listen to the people talking out there, you'll never become what you truly can be, because you're too busy focused on the negative reaction of people who don't matter. Like I'm telling you.
Imagine Jimmy sitting next to Tom Brady in the New England locker room and having that conversation, and Tom said, every time I look at social media, I get deflated just like my balls on the field. Carl, I knew you were going to do your little segment that you wanted Dion to see with the share screen, everything like that, because I know it's something we need to talk about.
We do, and I've been trying to hold my anger in for like the last 3 or 4 days of this or so, because there's two parts to this. Okay, we're going to go obviously the obvious elephant in the room. Okay, so bear with me a second. So Dion, everyone's going to be off screen. So this is basically a screen that I made. Okay, so it's the lack of diversity in the NFL. Okay, so here we go. Total number of black coaches that we've had since 1921 up to the present day has been 29. The current head coaches right now, we only have 4. Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Brian Flores for the Miami Dolphins, Ron Rivera for the Washington Retracted. Just a little side note to that, he has officially beaten cancer, so that's great news. And
congrats to him on that.
And obviously the new one, David Culley. This is the one I've really got a gripe about, but we'll get more into that. Current GMs, Chris Greer for the Dolphins and Andrew Berry for the Cleveland Browns. We all know how that's done well for Miami and for Cleveland. And then the last one is Super Bowl winners. Only Mike Tomlin and Tony Dungy have been able to do the impossible. 29 coaches since 1921. Dion, I mean, that just completely and utterly says it all. I mean, the Rooney Rule before the Rooney Rule got put in, I think it was up to 2003, I think it was, only black NFL coaches from 1921 to 2002. Since the Rooney Rule's been put in place, only 20. So you could basically say one coach every year gets hired. One black coach every year gets hired.
Yeah, sounds about right, man. Let me tell you something. This is just how I look at it, and I know it frustrates a lot of people. It does. I'll say this. As far as that goes, man, it's all about opportunity. And if you get the opportunity, then yes, you can go ahead. You can make some things happen, but there's not much else you're going to be able to do. You're going to have to roll with the punches. You're going to have to deal with the cards that you dealt. Black people have been doing this for years, period. I don't care where you are, where you're from. You've been rolling and just dealing with the hand that you're dealt forever. And what I will say is the Rooney Rule to me is worthless because it just means you have to interview him. So at that point, what they're saying is we're going to appease you by giving you an interview, but we're not really going to hire you. So to me, I think it's just a very simple situation.
Well, the two
At the end of the
But the two coordinators that are still on everyone's mind right now is Eric Bieniemy for the Kansas City Chiefs and Leslie Frazier for the Buffalo Bills. Bearing this in mind, Leslie Frazier was a coach. He was a head coach for the Minnesota Vikings between 2010 and 2013, if my mind serves me correctly. And Eric Bieniemy, we've already spoken about him. He's gone to back-to-back Super Bowls offensive coordinator. That's what you call a CV. If you've got that on like your CV for to go and get a job. Unlike David Culley. Okay, Culley has been in the NFL for 20 odd years, so he's had a lot of service. So I can understand why he got the position, but it wasn't the person that Deshaun Watson wanted in. I think if Bieniemy had gone into the Houston Texans job, there would have been a 50-50 chance Watson may have given the Texans brass the benefit of the doubt. But now that's happened. And once again, they didn't go to Watson and told him. The only time they told him was after they hired Culley. And obviously with the Detroit Lions as well, they've got Dan Campbell as coach. I mean, for the fucking love of me, I had a right go at someone, again, a Lions fan on Twitter regarding of this. Dan, do you know what Dan Campbell's records are? He was a tight end for the Detroit Lions. So they've tried to go, they tried to revitalize the New England Patriots way. So they tried to bring in Matt Patricia and we'll bring in, Trey Flowers. We'll bring in Jamie Collins and we need a receiver. I know, Danny Amendola. He's old, injury prone, and a poor man's Wes Welker. Oh, and he played for the Patriots, so it's fantastic. The guy that's come in, he played for the Detroit Lions for 3 years. His records were 3-13, 7-9, and then you know what I'm going to say, don't you? That dreaded 0-16 season. 0-16 season. That's a combined record of 10-38, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy gets ahead. Bear this in mind, he was interim head coach for the Dolphins back in 2015. Now, I say interim because I say if you can't get into a head coaching job the following year, it basically means you have not done enough to warrant that place. He went 5-7 in the assuming chaos with a certain Richie Incognito. And we all know about that debacle. And then he ended up going to the Saints to be tight ends coach and assistant coach for Sean Payton. Now, there may be some reasons to it, but I look at it as, again, look at a CV. Look at what you've done. What have you accomplished? Have you called plays before? That's a bit like trying to get someone in who's never called a play before straight into a head coaching role. It's a bit like, to be a prime example, it's like me running my own Michelin-starred restaurant. I was like, okay, we need a head coach. I like our sous chef. He's been here 5 years. I like our meat and fish line cook. He's been here for the last 4 years. He's improved by the day. But you know what? I'm actually going to employ the kitchen porter to run the fucking past. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Let me say this. When it comes to the diversity, at the end of the day, the way this is going to change is when ownership changes. And I'll say this because I heard something that made a lot of sense. I forget who said it, but they were on NFL Network, and he said, you got to think about it like this. These owners are hiring people who are like them, period. Like, if you can go in and you can sit down and you can have a conversation with these guys, they're like, they hiring people like them. So you got Mike Tomlin, you got David Culley, you got Ron Rivera, and you have Brian Flores. So for FTP, he got 1.5 because Flores is half black, half Hispanic. You don't get the last name Flores from just being black. Sorry, it's just I don't know any black Floreses. But what I will say is, to me, it's a crime when you can't get the job just based off of that. and you have a track record that shows that you actually can do something. And then the other issue for me is you're going to get a job and they're not going to give you job security. Steve Wilkes got 1 year in Arizona. Do you really think anybody's going to turn their team around in 1 year, especially with the way Arizona was when he went there? It was a trash job. So what's going to happen with David Culley? Houston is a horrible team, and if you trade away Deshaun Watson and somebody gives you a ridiculous amount of picks and their starting quarterback, you're starting from scratch. They're going to fire David Culley in 1 year. And it's not going to be fair, because I'll give you my prime example. And this guy, I truthfully don't care for, and I feel like he should. I'm glad he doesn't have a head coaching job anymore, but he was okay for a little bit, but he was trash for most of his years, and that was Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher had he was a really bad head coach. He had a really crappy record, but he just kept getting jobs. And for me, I'm gonna always say this: you have to straddle the fence. And if you notice, I think Doug Williams. He's the only quarterback for the then Washington Redskins, the only African American quarterback that won a Super Bowl. And now you have Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? And he's going up against Tom Brady. Now here's the thing. If you look at it, when you saw that Super Bowl, I looked at it from a different perspective. I saw two black head coaches going up against one another. And I said to myself, there's another caveat here. One's more fair-skinned, one's darker. And I'm going to tell you something, in the black community, this is no lie, because I have an older sister who is a lot darker than I am. When you're more fair-skinned, you get treated better. When I walk around, I have to straddle the fence, because I have, like, most of my family is French. No lie. I swear to you. They are all from damn France. I swear to you, France and fucking Ireland. And then I have African-American people. Like, people look at me and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I took my great-grandmother, who is German and French. Now, mind you, she German and French in a time when they weren't supposed to be mixing. So that tells you it's fucking been going on for a long goddamn time.
What was going on over there?
It's not changing. That ain't stopping for no damn body. Okay? Those two are going to collide regardless. So I took her. I was working at a movie theater. The movie Seabiscuit came out. My great-grandfather bet on that horse in that specific race and won a lot of goddamn money. When I took her to see that movie, my manager thought I was just giving some little old lady a free pass. I was like, no, that's actually my great-grandmother. He looked at me and he was like, bro, you're white? I was like, partially, yes. Didn't know that, did you? He was like, obviously not. Because literally, when you look at, she didn't look like me. You know what I'm saying? So it runs deep. And when you saw that the fairest skinned coach won, you look at that and you can even trace that all the way back to slavery, man. You lighter, you in the house. Darker, you out picking the cotton. Those are the things that happen. And these things have undertones in today's society in different ways. To me, period, point blank, it will change when ownership changes. When you start allowing, African Americans to come together as a group and say, hey, man, I want the Panthers. Because you know what? Diddy tried to buy the Panthers. Puff Daddy tried to buy the Panthers. He had a whole group of black people that wanted to come in. Nope. Didn't tell it to him. But didn't want to do it. Master P is trying to buy Reebok right now to revamp it and control it. Bring back Allen Iverson. You know what I'm saying? Do all these things. These coaches and these situations will not change until ownership changes. As long as you have the same people in there, they're going to have the same people running the squads. And it's no disrespect to anybody out there, because I'll tell you right now, Urban Meyer's a hell of a coach. You know what I'm saying? I have to respect him for what he's done in college, and he's damn sure should be in the NFL. If Pete Carroll's been here as long as he has, Urban Meyer for damn sure should be here. For me, I look at it like this. It hurts, but at the same time, it's a reality we've been living with for a long time. And it's only going to change when you change the people who own these teams, because then they're going to go ahead and look at it and say, all right, we're good. Because I can tell you right now, when Puff Daddy tried to buy the Panthers, the first thing that Puff Daddy said was he bringing a black GM, he bringing a black head coach, and Colin Kaepernick would be quarterbacking that team. And with those automatic motives, they're like, nah, because you got look at what Trump did. He automatically said, well, you know, these crybabies, these bastards in the NFL kneeling and disrespecting our flag. He told you what it was about. He gave you his reasoning. He spoke to a veteran, someone who went and put their life on the line for this country. I got family members that have done it and are still doing it. I got an uncle who just retired from the Coast Guard. As much as people make fun of the Coast Guard, they still matter. And believe you me, he done told me some stories that will blow your mind. But you see the people with the money, and the first thing they do is say, I can't identify you. I can't identify with you because you broke. You don't have money like I do. Or I can't identify with you. You don't look like me. You don't sound like me. You don't do the things that I do. Instead of golfing, you want to go to the movies, you know. Instead of, you know, going to these different establishments, you go here, you go there. So because of our differences and our diversity, we can't mesh and I can't hire you. That doesn't make sense. You know, you blend in, you blend in with every crowd. I can blend in with all of y'all in every which way. I can go over there and learn y'all lingo and understand how y'all move and just blend right in. You know, I can go to KC and hang with Mr. Rogers and chill, and ain't nothing wrong with that. And I can go and hang with FTP wherever he's at, and me and him probably gonna bond more than anybody because I already know FTP, like his community. You know what I'm saying? I lived in East LA for 2 years, bro. Believe you me, I done seen and learned some stuff, and I know how the Latino community move. Hell, my wife is part Mexican, so you get to learn and you understand how people move.
You'd struggle.
What are you saying, Nick?
I say you'd struggle coming over here, learning our lingo, and having to put up with Pete. Trust me.
Putting up with people would be fun.
All that shit music you couldn't. You seriously. You spend 5 minutes to say, "Nah, fuck this. I'm off. I'm going back home." But it's
no, man.
Because I tell you what, I think absolutely hit the nail on the head there from the owner standpoint, because you see all of this, you know, Black Lives Matter and what's the other thing? You see all these adverts on NFL Network.
Anything, man. Anything in general, you see the groups.
It's all very good, and the Rooney Rule, and obviously I had to step away for 2 minutes. But the thing with the Rooney Rule that bothers me, and the coaching thing in general, is why can't you talk to coaches, coordinators, whoever, all the time you're still in the Super Bowl? I mean, Eric Bieniemy is a prime example of that. You know, he could have been a head coach for any one of those teams that were looking for a head coach. But because he's on a successful team, they can't talk to the guy. So, and everyone's projecting that obviously the Chiefs are going to be good for a few years. So does that mean that Bieniemy has to move to a shit team to actually get a chance at one of these top jobs? I mean, what do you think, Scott? Do you think it's unfair? I know obviously you're happy he's still there, but do you think it's unfair on guys that are penalised because they're on the best team in the NFL and don't get chances, whatever colour they are or race? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I saw the other day, and well done, Chicago. They hired, I think it was a coordinator or a coach of some kind, the first one in the NFL of Indian descent, which again is another breakthrough. But all these breakthroughs aren't changing the way things are. They're just not. And as you say, you know, Scott, Eric Bieniemy, should he be a head coach of one of the teams that have just hired? What would you say? Would you say yes, or would you say no? He should stay where he is.
I mean, I don't know. His resume outside of being a coordinator with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid calls the plays. His resume is not that stellar, and he has some things in his background that are questionable. It definitely hurts when you're on a good team because you're not interviewing when other guys are interviewing. The Chiefs let him interview with Houston. They kind of broke that rule, or they gave an exemption, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think they broke the rule. I think the NFL gave approval for it. And he interviewed with the Texans. I think maybe he even did a second interview. So I don't know. Everybody on the team likes him. They talk him up and talk about what a great leader of men he is. But I don't know. I think when you look at his resume, teams look at it, and it's not, it's somewhat underwhelming. When he was an offensive coordinator, I can't remember what college it was at. They had one of the worst offenses in the country. So, I mean, you look at Adam Gase, right? When he was with the Broncos, when he was with Peyton Manning, he looked like a genius. I think there's some of that. People are starting to realize, some of these guys that are good.
That wasn't Adam Gase. That was Gary Kubiak all day long.
No, yeah. Adam Gase had Peyton Manning, didn't he?
Mm-mm.
I'm pretty sure he did. And you see these coordinators that were with Bill Belichick, and they go on. So I don't know if he should be a head coach or not. I think he will get hired at some point. I think if there was a team that looked at his resume and interviewed him and talked to him and thought, this is a guy that's going to lead us to 3 Super Bowls in the next 5 years, I think they'd hire him. I think for whatever it is, he's just not coming off, and teams aren't viewing him as someone they think is going to be a good head coach. I don't know.
That's interesting, actually, Scott, you saying that. And obviously, I know the 49ers this year have got an offensive coordinator, and it's still going to be Shanahan calling the plays. And I'm assuming the guy they promoted, they had to promote him to keep him within, because you can go to another team or you can interview, or another team can take you if you don't get promoted. So they promoted within for an offensive coordinator, but damn sure it's still going to be Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. The guy on the sideline might make a few funny hand signals, and that's about it. And that's probably what he'll do. And I heard what you said about Bieniemy, stuff in his background and things like that. So maybe people are just blowing smoke up his arse. I don't know. I mean, I'm not on I don't follow the Chiefs or anything, so I can't really say whether he's a good coordinator or a bad coordinator. But he seems to get put forward for all of these coaching jobs, but can't interview because the Chiefs are doing so well.
Right. And here's the other thing that we don't know too is how many of these interviews the last few years has maybe he's been offered a job, or maybe he didn't interview the team that wanted to interview him because it was a shitty organization and he doesn't want to just take a job just to take a job. I mean, you really want to go be the head coach of the Jets, or you really want to go be a head coach of one of these dysfunctional organizations that doesn't have a quarterback? So maybe part of it is his resume, and maybe part of it is he's been picky. The University of Colorado, I realize that's not an NFL team. They offered him the head coaching position, and he turned that down. I think that was last year, maybe it was the year before last. So I'm not privy to all the information and all the conversations, and I'm not sitting in on the interviews. Maybe he doesn't interview well. Maybe I don't know. All I can tell you is what I hear about his resume and his past, and that maybe he's being smart. Maybe he's turning down some of these jobs that, like Dion was saying, you're going to get fired in 2 years anyway. It don't matter who you are because the organization doesn't know what they're doing. And a lot of these coaching hires, like Carl was talking about, these guys that get jobs, I don't know how much of it is based off of racism or a lack of diversity. As much as it is, maybe it's incompetence. I mean, look at your job.
Yeah.
How many people get hired at your job for positions that they suck at and they fail at miserably? And I don't know if that, I don't know if that's based on the skin color of the person or the economic background of it. I mean, a lot of it is just incompetence. I mean, just because you own an NFL team doesn't mean you're any more competent than someone that owns my company that hires a complete moron to come in and be a manager or be an executive.
The Ford family have ran the Lions for decades, and there's a reason being why they've only won one playoff game in 64 years. I think cynicism is validated in this argument. Because the ownership doesn't care. The Ford just wants to continue to be happy and live her life until she dies. Then they will have to sell the team, and then that's going to create even more problems. Here's the thing regarding Dan Campbell, though. Everybody obviously saw his press conference. Everyone saw snippets of what he was saying. I've watched the entirety, the 90 minutes. I actually sat down and watched the whole press conference of 90 minutes. And there was something talk about family values and how he's going to try and improve the offense. One being putting DeAndre Swift in the slot. Well done. You've just given bulletin board material for the NFC North. That's not smart. But all about this biting off kneecaps and all this sort of thing. I'm thinking, who the fuck says that? Who the fuck says that? Okay, can someone please?
Crazy.
It was crazy, and it was like. And then we're going to take another lump out. I'm thinking to myself, the Detroit Lions have been irrelevant for so freaking long. They don't need all this gusto and we're going to freaking punch you when we get back up again, all this, that, and the other. They need resuscitation. They need revitalization. They need my missus to come down from downstairs, get a flight to Detroit and stick 2 fucking adrenaline jabs in their heart.
That still wouldn't work because as everyone knows, they are no.
I have referenced it to a Motley Crue song, but I digress.
Really, Detroit and the Ford family are a match made in hell because the fans want a winning team. The Ford family couldn't give a shit because it's their plaything. Kind of like as well our friends in Dallas. That to him is just his ego boost because he's a
to me, I'll say this. As far as Eric Bieniemy goes, period, point blank, that man should have a head coaching job. I know that you rest on your laurels when you say that, Mr. Rogers, as far as his background and all of that stuff. But to me, it just doesn't make sense because if that's the case, then there's a billion people out there with jobs as far as that goes that definitely weren't that damn competent to be able to hold them, as far as head coaches or anything like that. I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like it's straight up. It is the fact that it is, a part of who he is. And that's basically what he's had, what's going on. And to me, I understand where you're saying don't take a shit franchise. I get it. I wouldn't want to either because, you will get fired. But the other thing for me, at the end of the day, a dude that's been on a winning squad can bring a winning culture. And that's what you want in your franchise. You never want to have a culture where people are just sucking continuously because that's all they're going to know. Now, that dude with the Detroit Lions, when he was talking about biting off kneecaps and all that shit, that was some rah-rah shit, but that's for the locker room, bro. You don't do that at a press conference. That's just flat out ignorance. Because people look at you and go what are you talking about? Then they start judging they start questioning your mental state. Why you want to bite somebody's kneecaps off? What's going on here? You Hannibal Lecter or something? We don't know. But to me, period, point blank, Bieniemy should have a head coaching job just because of him being an understudy of Andy Reid. Now, I don't know what this stuff is in his past and his background that people may be thinking of, but let me tell you this. If Kareem Hunt can do what he did and he wind up getting a job again, then why can't Bieniemy go ahead and get a job?
I think being a running back is a little bit different than being a head coach. And
it is.
And running
it is.
organization.
It is. But
And I'm not
what
saying
I'm
that he
saying,
shouldn't get the job because of that. What I'm saying is, I think when people look at his resume outside of when he was with Andy Reid, it's not all that impressive. And then maybe
neither is David
they're
Culley's.
hurting him. So
David Culley's resume ain't impressive. The dude who just got hired in Detroit, his definitely ain't impressive. He was a part of 3 crap teams. Like he's done. Yeah, he's never called a play in his life. So
I'm
I
not
mean,
saying
like,
that he should be a head coach either. So
yeah,
I don't.
but I'm saying, like, to me, I'm looking at it going, when you're the so-called golden boy, and people look at you and they mention your name on a consistent basis, you should already have a job lined up. We all knew that Kyle Shanahan was bringing his ass to San Francisco after that damn Super Bowl. We knew it, whether he won or lost it. We knew he was coming here. And that was because why? Kyle Shanahan had built himself a resume. Eric Bieniemy has built himself a resume in the NFL worthy of him being a head coach. He didn't want to go to the college ranks because he felt probably, I can tell you right now, he probably felt slighted by that. Like, I appreciate the offer, but at the same time, like, bro, one of these owners is gonna have to go ahead and open their pocketbook and tell me to come in and fix their situation. And as far as the Houston Texans things go, this is what I'll say about that. That was strictly to save face. That's all that was. That was a last-ditch effort to get Deshaun to say, I don't want to be traded no more if you bring in Eric Bieniemy. And then Nick Caserio comes out the other day and goes, oh, we're not trading Deshaun. Bullshit. Y'all working behind the scenes to go ahead and see what you can get for that man. And when somebody hands you a king's ransom, you'll go ahead and see if you can ship him wherever and if he'll take the deal because he's going to want to go somewhere. But then at the end of the day, like, you can't do that. And then they hired David Culley strictly based on the fact that they just wanted a black head coach. That's literally what it was. They were like, okay, if we get a black head coach in here, we'll make it work. Oh, he'll want to stay. He ain't gonna want to stay, man. He ain't gonna want to stay.
One word to describe the hiring was desperation.
Flat out, straight desperation. Because you knew he wasn't doing it.
Then the guy that Deshaun said he wanted.
They didn't hire Eric Bieniemy because Eric Bieniemy is right now. That's not what they wanted. They didn't want that. They wanted somebody they can run. You got to think about it. If you get somebody, most of the time in these organizations, the owners really want to be out there on the field. They really want to be the guy winning the game. They want to be in control. Prime suspect is Jerry Jones.
Dion, I preach to you about that because that is exactly the same sort of culture and the same sort of way that Jerry Jones run the Dallas Cowboys. He doesn't want his coach to have any say. He wants it all to be him. He goes, no, you're my puppet. You do as you're told.
You do as you're told. Yeah, it's been that way.
Exactly the same.
But they didn't hire Eric Bieniemy because they knew that Eric Bieniemy was going to be somebody that was going to come in and say, hey, I'm going to run this team a specific way, and I need y'all to allow me to do that. Now, if y'all can allow me to do that, then fine. If you can't, then I don't think I need this job. And I've seen that before, man. I've seen it a million times where owners, they really want to be the savior of the organization. They want that recognition. You know what I'm saying? Jerry Jones is trying his best to get a championship before he dies because that's all he really wants. It's just one more ring. And he's never going to get it. He's certainly
not going to get it if he doesn't get Dak Prescott back.
Yeah, because I tell you right now, if you throw Dak Prescott out there, pick him up. We don't need to be giving up the world for Deshaun Watson. You put Dak Prescott on the 49ers, we going straight to the Super Bowl. And I'll trade Jimmy.
Still on big money. Dak Prescott still on big money.
I'd pay him every penny because he's worth it. I would. For a man who has a proven track record, I'd give him the bread. I really would. I would not waste my money on. I wouldn't waste a second on it. I'd pay him and make sure that he did what he was supposed to do. There's nothing else you can really do about that. But I think that Bieniemy he has a mindset of saying, hey, I'm going to control things my way. And if you guys aren't working with that, then it is what it is. So I can understand where you're coming from, but I just feel like he still hasn't become a head coach because people don't want him to be one, man. Like it's definitely, and for me, I look at things in such an odd way. I'm not one of those people like I don't call things, the way they see them. I don't call myself a minority. I'm black. That's what I am. You know what I'm saying? To me, FTP is Latino. That's who he is. You guys are Caucasian or white. That's who you are. It is what it is. I just look at things for what they are, But I feel like At this point, he should honestly have been hired a long time ago. People should have seen his wisdom and went ahead and gave him a job. Doug Peterson got hired. He was under Andy Reid's culture tree. So what's the difference? You know what I'm saying?
Can I jump in real quick?
Go,
Can I say something
by all
real
means.
quick? 'Cause I think,
Please.
well, just because I think one of the things that franchises have become particularly wary of in the last few years is the Josh McDaniels in Indianapolis situation. Are the Texans sitting there thinking, you know what, we really want Eric Bieniemy, but we haven't yet got that chance to give him that second interview. And if we give him that second interview after the Super Bowl, and then he says, actually, no, I think you're dysfunctional, I don't want to come there, thanks a lot. They're left, jilted at the altar in the same way as the Colts were with McDaniels a few years ago. And I wonder if there's a bit of almost fear amongst the owners that they get left looking stupid. And let's face it, that hasn't turned out too badly for the Colts, has it? But you almost wonder whether they're worried they're going to miss out on somebody else. And is this the moment that the NFL need to recognize they need to change the hiring process? And they need to either let everybody interview from the end of the regular season, or they need to shut it down and go, right, nobody interviews until the end of the Super Bowl. And then every coach has at least got the same opportunity to prepare for those interviews and to go into them in the same circumstances.
Trouble with that, though, is a lot of teams, as we've seen this season, have wanted to get those coaches in early, and they can't wait till after the Super Bowl because it gives them less time to prepare for the draft and this, that, and the other. As you say. I mean, everyone knew that Shanahan was going to the Niners even before the Super Bowl. It was just one of them things that
we knew it.
It is what it is, What do you think of your company? What do you think of Arthur Brown? What do you think he's going to bring to the table and the coaching staff that he's assembled? Are you looking forward to the season? Are you optimistic? Let's see what happens? How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was sitting here going, I really hope we hire Eric Bieniemy when this whole process started. I think the offensive coach is the right way to go and bring in a good defensive guy. And I'm glad he's done that with Dean Pease. I mean, his resume from his time in Baltimore is exceptional, and having him running the defense, I think, is going to be a great thing. I was surprised, given the way that Arthur Blank talked about the need for more diversity in the league and the need for teams to be hiring black head coaches. I was surprised that we didn't go down that route. Clearly, our new GM, he has gone that way, but I was slightly surprised it was Arthur Smith that was the call there in terms of our head coach. But I think he's shown in Tennessee he's got some no real star names on that offense, and yet they've been able to go away and deliver 2 or 3 seasons on the trot and take that side all the way into the playoffs. So I like the hire. I'm interested to see what he's going to do. And as we talked about earlier in the little draft slot, I'm interested to see what they do with that first pick. Is he going to stick with Matt Ryan, or is he going to hinge his future on a young quarterback? But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic it'll be a good one. But I was surprised.
Just real quick, how many years has Matt Ryan got left on his contract? Because this will be critical.
2 years, but both at ridiculously high cap numbers and lots of guaranteed money that.
I mean, the quarterback. You look at the quarterback class this year in the draft, and it is stacked. It looks exceptional. You look into next year's draft, and there doesn't look a lot there. So you just have to wonder, the Falcons could either wing it with Matt Ryan and then just see where it goes, or you put your succession plan in now and then wait for Matt Ryan to leave in the next 1-2 years and then bring a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance in or Justin Fields in.
Yeah, and I think if we talk about that top 6 in terms of the quarterback class in this draft, I think there's one other guy who will probably go 3rd or 4th round who could be a future starter, and that's Jamie Newman of Georgia. Although we say of Georgia, he's never actually played a game for Georgia. He played all his college football at Wake Forest, transferred to Georgia, and then sat out this season. Clearly, he did that to try and show that he could compete at SEC level and therefore at NFL level. And he's not had that chance. But if I'm, if I was sitting there in charge of the Falcons draft room, I'd be going, right, let's find myself Jamie Newman in round 3 or round 4 and bring him along for a couple of years, because I think he's got the tools. He just hasn't had the chance against that decent competition yet and probably needs a bit of coaching up. And I'd look to my first 2 draft picks to be guys who can improve the team now.
He's a good quarterback. He's got a nice solid arm on him. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. So you could say a sort of Cam Newton type of sort of player, but probably with a little bit more better passing ability, shall we say. But yeah, Jamie Newman in round 3 or 4, I think that could be a steal. That could be, you could be looking.
Newton last season, Carl, because
Okay.
sorry, I had to put that little dig in as ever. As you know, we do like having you on here, Carl, because after last season and Cam Newton, it's an easy target. I mean, you had Brady deflating balls and, all that kind of stuff. One thing I want to touch on, guys, and I'll go to George first. When we talked about coaches taking jobs kind of for the sake of it and not being given enough time, I'm worried for Robert Saleh because I don't think the Jets are a great organisation. And I was quite surprised, if I'm honest, when I can see why he took the job. Don't get me wrong. Of course I can. Anyone would. But I thought he might have given it another year in San Francisco, bearing in mind all 49ers fans know what a shitstorm season it was. And once everyone's back fit, watch out, NFC. You know that we're going to be a contender again. And so I was quite surprised he went to such a dysfunctional organisation. And I do worry that he's not going to get the chance. George, what do you think?
Well, I mean, as a fan, my first reaction was, "Oh shit," because I didn't, I didn't want him to go. But like you were saying, it's like I understand too why he did hop on it. But on the flip side of that, I too was surprised that he decided to sit down and conversate with the Jets and actually pull the trigger and go there. I thought, my initial thought when all the rumors were starting to circulate was that he would end up in San Diego, because they're kind of set up to have short-term immediate success with Herbert, there. So when I found out that he was going to the Jets, it took me by surprise, like a lot of people. But at the same time, you see kind of the foundation of what he's going to be working with all the picks and the cap space, and it looks like he does have a good understanding of what it's going to take to build a team. I don't think that he's going to have immediate success, and it all depends on what they end up doing with Darnold, if they end up sticking with him or if he decides to move on and away from him. But with the amount of picks that they have and the cap space that they have a lot of flexibility to actually do something. Now, whether he's actually given the full reign of power to execute some of the moves that he would be wanting to make, I mean, time will tell. I think that if he is, I think he can turn that team around. I think he can do something within the next few years. But we go back to the what we were talking about earlier of giving these coaches a chance, giving them the time, giving them the actual opportunities that they need to actually build something. Because to turn that franchise around, to turn that team around, it's going to take time. And I mean, I don't have any doubt that he'd be able to, based on his coaching abilities. It's just whether or not things are going to fall in place the right way, that they actually give him the opportunity to build something, to work off of it, like they did with Shanahan. Shanahan, they brought him in and he came into a shitstorm with the 49ers. I mean, it was a fucking mess. But thankfully with John Lynch, they kind of combined heads and power and said, you know what, we have to do this long term. This isn't going to be a quick turnaround fix, despite what us crazy ass dumbass fans want. We want instant success, but that's just not how it works in the NFL. And as fans, people get frustrated, and then all the chirping starts happening, and it's like, oh, we made a mistake, blah 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 blah. And they're just quick to look for the next flavor of the month.
I mean, the good thing to think about Salah is, and the way he comes across, the players all love him, and I'm sure all of the players on the Jets will love them. I can see a lot of Niners going there in free agency. I think anyone can see that. That's a Niners fan, and some are probably good riddance, and others are, oh shit, I wish we'd have kept him or offered him a contract. And he is one of the good guys. And and I remember a couple of seasons ago when they didn't have Bosa and they didn't have players in play. Get rid of him, fire him, he's fucking useless, get his ass out the door. Remember those times? And look back now, and he's a head coach, for Christ's sake. And, I'm sure his presentation skills in the interview and what he can bring to the table, etc., were exemplary, and that's why he got the job. But as I said, and as you said, George, I want to see him given time, because he I'm not saying in 2 years' time, if he was fired, the Niners would have him back in a heartbeat. But you don't want him to. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I feel very sad that he went, and I know people are gone, Dion. And it made me sad. It really, because I thought we were building something special, and he'd want to be part of it. But obviously, the lure of the main man at a franchise was too much for him to take, really.
I mean, they were talking about hiring him as a coach last year, and I think he would have been hired as a coach last year had it not been for the fact that the Niners made it to the Super Bowl. And then you run into this whole conundrum that Bieniemy's facing right now of making a deep run in the playoffs where they can't actually sit down and talk to him. So, I mean, his name's been floating around now for, since he's been with us for the last couple of years. But the fact that we, weren't in the playoff picture this year, teams were able to jump on the opportunity to talk to him early. And he just said, you know what, I'm out here.
Yeah, I don't want to see him ending up on the scrap heap of coaches, basically, as well, if he does get his own fired. But it's yeah. I mean, what do you think, Dion? Do you think he was right to take the job? Do you wish he would have stayed and run the train, or was it just too much to not do?
Take that job. Take the head coaching job, because that's what you're coaching to do. You're not coaching to just be a defensive coordinator for the rest of your life. You're not coaching. Like Chris Kasarik is comfortable being the D-line coach. So that's all right. He made that very clear. So why do you think D'Amico Ryan's got the job? Why? Because he was next up and Kasarik didn't want it. At the same time, if you have that option, that's what you're doing. See, that goes back to my point from earlier. If you're playing football, what are you playing it for? See, I can respect somebody who makes their intentions known. Straight up. If you don't like me and you tell me that straight to my face, I respect that. That just means I won't bother with you. It is what it is. Like, I'm not going to be mad at you, try to make you like me. None of that. Like, it's all right, cool. At least you told me. You know what I'm saying? So for Salah, it was take the job. You know why? For himself, because that's what he wanted to do. Eventually, he wanted to be a head coach. And at the same time, for his people. Now in Lebanon they can scream, we had coaches. He's Lebanese. There you go. For your people. You did it. You the first one. Now if there's anybody over there in Lebanon that decides that they come into the US, they want to be a head coach, they got an example in front of them. They got somebody that says they beat the odds, they did it. So for me, yeah, he was right to take it. But do I feel like they're going to give him the proper time? I don't know. And that's where I agree with you on that, Nick. I want them to give him time to be able to build that squad. He's going to have that defense up and running in no time. The offense is where it's going to take the time, because Sam Darnold is trash. We all know that. I don't want him anywhere near the 49ers. USC quarterbacks suck outside of Carson Palmer. And if anyone has any other information on that, by all means, please let me know a USC quarterback that has done anything in the league besides him. And please don't give me Mr. Butt Fumble, because he rolled that defense to both of those AFC championships. We all know he rolled the defense to both of those AFC championships. So for me, he was right to take the job. It's what he was supposed to do. He wanted to do it. He got the opportunity. He was blessed with it. Take the job, have fun with it, do what you do, the same thing that you do. And I want to see Robert Saleh give the same energy that he gave to us to them. I want to see those crazy rah-rah moments where he winds up on SportsCenter because he's so amped up because somebody got a sack or they got a tackle or they got to stop on the goal line and all those things, because that's what he brings to the table. So, yeah, take the job, man. You don't do it. Mr. Rogers, if your boss came to you and gave you the position you've been looking for and said, hey, Mr. Rogers, we love what you're doing, baby. CEO. You taking that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a company I already work at, though, and I know who's there and I know what's in place, and
Yeah.
I obviously work there because I know that it's a good company.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the opportunity arises.
I know it has a ton of trouble and has been struggling forever. Comes to me, I'm not just going to jump on that.
No, I understand. I can understand that. Yeah. But I'm saying if it's offered in house, you gonna take the jump, right?
Probably, yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, all of us, if we have that opportunity, we're gonna jump on top of it. The difference is with the Jets, they have so much money in cap space. And when you bring in somebody like Saleh, who's a player's coach, people will want to go there. I'm going to tell you right now, if we don't give him enough money, K1 will be a Jet. And that's going to hurt because he's too damn good. That is the best nickelback in the league. I'm telling you right now. It really is.
And Fred Warner's one of the best linebackers in the league.
He ain't going nowhere.
He ain't going nowhere.
Don't you, Carl? Don't you
He ain't going nowhere.
Carl, don't you
Stop that.
I'm not.
Don't you bring
Stop
that bad juju over here. Stop
exactly.
it. Don't
even start putting that vibe out there.
Right. We need to keep Fred for the rest of our days. Fred will be not going anywhere. But I think it's just he's smart. Yeah. Keep it. Take that job, man. Take it. I'd run with it. Hey, I'm a head coach. I can put that on my resume, and at the same time, I can take the Jets and do with things, these other coaches couldn't do. I'm going to turn that defense into something, and then he's smart because he's going to bring in some people. There you go. See, look at John B. He said, hey, man, calm down. You're giving us a bad juju. But we good. Yeah. Take it and run with it.
Funny, Dion, talking about John, that he's done more comments in the chat. And he could have been on the show, but he's afraid to, I think.
He's probably working.
No. It's his better half's birthday today, and he was.
You can't.
But he's obviously been time out. You're not speaking with those English bozos and all those other people they get on there.
Yeah, definitely don't want to hinder the boys out.
I think we should get her on, so we can all sing her a happy birthday. There's an idea, John. You've got the link. Click the link. And we've got a nice choir here, multiracial as well.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Everyone's going, oh, fuck, I ain't singing. So, Carl, you're good ladies with you, so you're not going to watch the Senior Bowl until tomorrow. It's the first time I've ever watched it. I just want to see some football because I know there's nothing on tomorrow. Scott, are you going to watch a Senior Bowl, or is it something you're not really into over there?
No, that's not really my thing. I follow some college football. Obviously, there's. I live in Big 12 country. I see a lot of Oklahoma, in Texas, and I follow it somewhat because I play fantasy. But yeah, no, I probably won't watch it.
Carl is he's too focused. No, not Carl. I'm sorry. Mr. Rogers is too focused on whooping Tom Brady's ass. And I'm going to ask you to please do that. I don't like Tom Brady. I've never liked Tom Brady. I've always hated Tom Brady. So, Mr. Rogers, would you kindly just whoop his ass? And I don't want a small win. I don't want 2 or 3. Blow him out by like 40 if you can. Just
That's a
deflate
shame.
his ego and show him that this young man, Patrick Mahomes, is here to stay. And let him know as well, we worth about $500 million over here, baby. So we're going to win a couple of these.
That's a shame, Dion, because I was actually going to pay for your flight to come to Vegas with me next year for the NFL draft, but now you can go fuck yourself after that comment.
Well, let me tell you this. I'm
Excuse me?
I'm 4 hours. I'm 4 hours away from Vegas. So you know what I'm gonna do? FTP, come to AZ with me. We're gonna drive to Vegas. We're gonna beat Carl there. And then we go get his ass from the Fred Warner comments earlier. That's what we go do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Dion,
You can count me in on that one as well. I'll hold him down while you kick him.
Dion, you're worrying me, man. You've been telling me we're going to lose the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you've been rooting against me, and now you're rooting for me.
I hate Brady.
Switching the karma around.
I hate Brady. I hate him. I don't like Tom Brady. I've never liked Tom Brady. The only thing that I say good about the only thing I say about Tom Brady is he was actually a very good man, because that man should have been paid a hell of a lot more than he got paid in his damn career. He took a lot of dips for the 6 Super Bowl rings, and y'all paying me chump change. I ain't even in the top 5 getting paid quarterbacks. Oh, hell no. You out your mind.
Yeah.
No, sir.
His legacy was obviously more important to him than his checkbook. And when you have a wife that makes more money than you do, that helps as well. So
it does, but man, if I'm Tom Brady, I can make a lot more than my wife. You know, I mean, he probably over there talking about, I ain't worried about how much money she making. She ain't too hard on the eyes, and he good on that one.
I'm just saying, you can take $4 or $5 million less when your wife's bringing in a couple $100 million or whatever of her own.
Duly noted. Can't disagree on that one now, brother. Can't disagree.
I'm actually looking forward to next week's Super Bowl preview show, because I am like you, Dion. I'm all over the Chiefs next week, and I wasn't. And let's see, look, and even Pete might be on the Chiefs if he makes it next week. So you know what that means? Tom Brady is going to blow you fuckers out, and I'm sorry that we've put you in that position, because I don't want to jinx it. I can't have Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl. I mean, to be fair, it's bad enough, the Mahomes hype and the Brady thing before the Super Bowl, but Jesus, if he wins another one, I'd rather listen to Mahomes hype than have Tom Brady rammed down my throat. I really, I don't think I can handle it. I put the money on, so I'm staying up to watch it, and it's going to pain me if Brady wins it.
And winning in his own house. I don't have time for that. He'll be the first quarterback to do that. Yeah, no.
No, exactly. That's the other storyline, of course. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap it up now. It's been great chat. Lots of comments from John V. Happy birthday to John V's better half. Unfortunately, It looks like she won't come on, so we can't sing. So that's good, because that means we might actually get some more viewers, because no one wants to hear us fuckers sing, trust me.
No, they don't.
Enjoy.
Hey, happy birthday to her anyway, man. Happy birthday to your wife, John V. Everybody knows that, happy wife, happy life, man. Happy birthday to her regardless. And you're right. I ain't singing, because y'all gonna all hit that exit button. Y'all hit that leave button if y'all hear me start singing. It ain't gonna work.
Yeah, trust me, they do that when I warm up my voice, so that's fine. And luckily, Pete's saying it because, well, I don't even want to talk about his singing voice. I have put videos out of him singing the Stars and Stripes and also the national anthem at the NFL international games before. And funnily enough, I had to delete them because people thought the cat was being strangled. But that's a different story. And it wasn't Little Miss. And I still, Actually, talk of that before we go, very, very quickly, Dion. Little bit of information on Pete and I. We had a bit of downtime at work this week, and he was saying how we were talking about the best girl bands that have ever been brought out of this country.
Oh,
And
not this shit again.
we looked at record sales. Hear me out. We looked at record sales, and Pete was like, Little Mix are so much better than the Spice Girls. They're far superior, blah, and all this crap. Little Mix sold 50 million records worldwide. Remarkable. And the Spice Girls sold 90 million worldwide. So it's they're close. And Pete got a bit butthurt over that. So his little mix were dissed by the Spice Girls, but to be honest, they're both shit. Anyway, you've been watching the Shank Club NFL. Thanks to Carl, Scott next week, obviously. Craig, good to have you on. If you want to come on next week to our Super Bowl preview, drop me a message, let me know. Dion, as ever, pleasure having you on. FTP, I haven't seen any of these smack videos or anything even close to some smack videos. You must come back.
Next year.
YouTube need input.
Next year, and I'm going to light up half of our own fan base.
Exactly, and that's why you should be on. We need the smack. You've got to bring the smack back. My name's Nick Court. This has been the Shank. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next week for the Super Bowl preview. Stay safe. Fuck COVID.